My name is Brenda Mitchell, and at 68 years old, I never imagined my own son would try to poison me for money. When Andrew asked for $150,000 for his new business venture, something felt off about the whole situation. My motherly instincts kicked in, and thankfully, I listened to them. 2 days after I refused his wife, Jessica came by with coffee she claimed was specially made for me. The strange smell saved my life that day, and what happened next changed our family forever. Before I tell you what happened, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button if you've ever had to make a tough decision to protect yourself. I spent 45 years as a financial advisor before retiring 3 years ago. Every dollar in my retirement account represents countless hours of hard work, careful investing, and sacrifices made along the way. I was a single mother who raised Andrew on my own after his father walked out when he was just 4 years old. Despite the challenges of single parenthood, Andrew and I had an incredibly close relationship throughout his childhood. I never missed a baseball game or school event. We took summer road trips in our old station wagon, camping under the stars to save money for his college fund. I worked extra hours and weekends to ensure he could attend a good university without drowning in student loan debt. Andrew graduated with honors in business administration. I couldn't have been prouder watching him walk across that stage in his cap and gown. He landed a solid job at a marketing firm right after college and seemed to be on the right path. We still met for dinner every Sunday, and he called me several times a week just to chat. Everything changed 5 years ago when Andrew met Jessica at a company party. She worked in the same building in the luxury real estate division. Jessica was undeniably beautiful, with her perfectly styled blonde hair and designer clothes. She was charming and vivacious at our first meeting, complimenting my home and asking thoughtful questions about my work. Yet, something about her didn't sit right with me. There was a calculation behind her smile that made me uneasy. Their whirlwind romance moved at lightning speed. Within 6 months, Andrew proposed with a ring that I later learned cost him 3 months' salary. They married in an extravagant ceremony at a vineyard estate that Andrew couldn't possibly afford on his own. I contributed $20,000 toward their wedding, though Jessica had hinted they needed twice that amount. After the honeymoon, I began noticing subtle changes in my son. The Andrew, who once wore the same comfortable sweaters for years, suddenly cared about brand names. He traded in his practical sedan for a luxury SUV he could barely afford. Our Sunday dinners became less frequent, and when they did occur, Jessica dominated the conversation with stories about their friends' vacation homes or the latest expensive restaurant they'd tried. Meanwhile, I was settling into retirement, carefully budgeting to ensure my savings would last. I'd purchased a modest single-story home in a quiet neighborhood, perfect for my golden years. My financial advisor and I had created a solid plan that would allow me to live comfortably while keeping a significant sum as an emergency fund and eventual inheritance for Andrew. Despite their dual incomes, Andrew and Jessica seemed perpetually short on cash. Jessica's Instagram showcased weekend getaways, high-end boutique shopping sprees, and elaborate home renovations. Yet Andrew would casually mention struggles to meet their mortgage payments or unexpected car repairs that strained their budget. Over the years, I had helped them financially more than once. Beyond the wedding contribution, I gave them $30,000 for a down payment on their house and loaned them money twice for what Andrew described as temporary cash flow problems. The loans were eventually repaid, but always months later than promised, and only after uncomfortable reminders. During the last family Thanksgiving, I overheard Jessica whispering to Andrew in the kitchen. "Just ask her," she insisted. "What's the point of all that money sitting in her accounts when she could be helping us?" Andrew looked uncomfortable but nodded reluctantly. They fell silent when they noticed me standing in the doorway. That night, I updated my will and made an appointment with my lawyer, just in case. Something told me trouble was brewing. The call came on a Tuesday evening in April. I was watering my garden when Andrew's name flashed across my phone screen. "Mom, I've got incredible news," he said, his voice brimming with excitement that sounded slightly forced. "I need to tell you about it in person. Can Jessica and I come over for dinner tomorrow?" I agreed, curious about what prompted this sudden enthusiasm. They arrived the next evening with a bottle of expensive wine and Jessica carrying a folder tucked under her arm. "You look beautiful, Brenda," Jessica said, air-kissing both my cheeks. "That blue really brings out your eyes." She was laying it on thick, which immediately put me on alert. After a dinner that neither of them seemed interested in eating, Andrew cleared his throat. "Mom, we want to talk to you about an amazing opportunity. It's going to change everything for us." Jessica pulled out the folder and spread several glossy printouts across my dining table. "It's a tech startup focusing on cryptocurrency investment platforms for seniors," she explained, pointing to colorful charts with impressive upward trajectories. "The founder is a genius who worked at Google and Apple. He's only bringing in select investors for the ground floor opportunity." Andrew jumped in. "The minimum investment is $150,000, but the projected returns are incredible. We're talking potential tripling of investment within 18 months. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Well," Andrew shifted uncomfortably, "we thought you might want to invest. Or maybe," he glanced at Jessica, who gave him an encouraging nod, "you could invest on our behalf. We'd split the profits with you 50-50. As they continued their pitch, the red flags were impossible to ignore. The business plan was vague at best, with buzzwords like proprietary algorithm and disruptive technology thrown around without any substantive explanation. When I asked basic questions about the company's operations or revenue model, they offered rehearsed surface-level responses. "Who else has invested?" I asked. "That's confidential information," Jessica replied smoothly. "But several high-net-worth individuals from our network are already on board." Throughout their presentation, Andrew rarely made eye contact with me. His hands fidgeted constantly, and he kept glancing at Jessica for guidance. This wasn't my confident, straightforward son. This was someone desperately following a script. Jessica's behavior was equally concerning. Her usual aloof demeanor was replaced with excessive warmth and enthusiasm. She kept touching my arm and using phrases like securing your legacy and investing in family's future. "I need some time to think about this," I said finally. "And I'd like to see the actual business documentation, financial projections, and information about the company leadership." Their smiles faltered simultaneously. "The opportunity won't last long," Jessica said, a slight edge creeping into her voice. "Other investors are lined up. Then I'll need to decide quickly, but not without proper due diligence," I replied firmly. "That's how I've managed my money all these years." As they were leaving, Andrew hung back momentarily, while Jessica walked to the car. "Mom, this really is important to us," he said softly, a desperation in his eyes I'd never seen before. "Things haven't been great financially, and this could solve everything. I'll look into it," I promised, hugging him goodbye. The tension in his shoulders told me there was more to the story than a simple investment opportunity. After they left, I called Robert, my former colleague, who specialized in investment fraud. I described the proposal and emailed him the materials Jessica had left behind. His response came the next morning. "Brenda, this has all the hallmarks of a scam. The company isn't registered properly, there's no verifiable track record, and the promised returns are unrealistic. I'd stay far away from this." Through another mutual friend who worked at Andrew's company, I discreetly learned that both Andrew and Jessica had recently been put on performance improvement plans at work. More alarmingly, they were rumored to be over $300,000 in debt between their underwater mortgage car loans and maxed-out credit cards. The pieces were falling into place, and the picture they formed was troubling. This wasn't about an investment opportunity. This was about access to my money. Making the decision to say no was one of the hardest things I've ever done as a mother. Every parent wants to help their child to make their life easier. But I knew that handing over my retirement savings for this scheme would be throwing good money after bad. I called Andrew the following evening, steeling myself for a difficult conversation. "I've looked into the investment opportunity." I began carefully and consulted with some colleagues from my former firm. "I'm sorry, but I can't invest in this. There are too many red flags, and the business model doesn't hold up to scrutiny." There was a long silence before Andrew responded, his voice suddenly cold. "You don't trust me. After everything, you still treat me like a child who can't make his own decisions." "This isn't about trust, Andrew. This is about protecting both of us from what looks like a fraudulent scheme." "You're just selfish," he shot back, his tone unrecognizable. "Sitting on your pile of money while your only son struggles. What are you saving it for, anyway? To take it to your grave?" I was stunned by this attack. Before I could respond, I heard Jessica's voice in the background, demanding to know what was happening. Then she was on the phone. "Brenda, I think you're making a terrible mistake," Jessica said, her voice artificially controlled. "This opportunity won't come around again. You're going to regret this decision. I promise you that." Something in her tone sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't just disappointment or anger. There was a thinly veiled threat lurking beneath her words. "My decision is final," I said firmly. "I'm sorry if that disappoints you both." The call ended abruptly, leaving me shaken. Within minutes, my phone began buzzing with text messages. Andrew accused me of never supporting his dreams and caring more about money than family. Jessica's messages were more disturbing, with cryptic statements like, "You'll see what happens to people who stand in our way," and "Hope your will is updated." I barely slept that night. Around 3 in the morning, I was startled awake by a noise outside. Peering through the blinds, I saw Jessica's distinctive red sports car, parked across the street, headlights off. She appeared to be just sitting there, watching my house. 30 minutes later, she drove away. The next morning, my neighbor Carol came over for our usual coffee date. "Did you have visitors in the middle of the night?" she asked casually. "I got up to take my medication around 2 and noticed someone trying your front door handle. I was about to call the police when they left." My blood ran cold. I checked my recently installed security system, and sure enough, the camera had captured a hooded figure at my door at 2:17 a.m., testing the handle before quickly departing. I called my sister Marie immediately and told her everything. "Brenda, this is serious," she said, alarm evident in her voice. "You need to document all of this. Save the texts, download the security footage, and be extremely careful around Andrew and Jessica right now." "You don't think my own son would—" I couldn't even finish the sentence. "I think Jessica is capable of anything, And Andrew seems to be under her control, Marie replied grimly. Promise me you'll be careful. I spent the day installing additional security cameras, changing my locks, and documenting every concerning interaction. The weight of what was happening crushed my heart. How had we gone from the close mother and son who once shared everything to this suspicion, threats, and midnight prowlers? That night, I updated my emergency contacts, wrote down all the recent events in detail, and placed the document in my safe. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own child, or rather what his wife might convince him to do. The doorbell rang at exactly 10 o'clock on Thursday morning, 2 days after I had refused the investment request. Through the peephole, I saw Jessica standing on my porch, holding a cardboard tray with 2 coffee cups and wearing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. My instinct was to pretend I wasn't home, but she had already spotted my car in the driveway, and the living room lights on. Taking a deep breath, I opened the door, but kept the security chain fastened. "Good morning, Brenda," Jessica chirped with artificial brightness. "I thought we could clear the air over coffee. I know things got a bit heated the other day." I hesitated, but with neighbors watching from across the street, I reluctantly let her in. "That's thoughtful of you," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "I brought your favorite vanilla latte," she said, though I had never mentioned having a favorite coffee drink to her. "I had them make it specially for you at this little cafe I discovered." Jessica insisted on preparing everything herself, declining my offer to help. She disappeared into the kitchen while I waited in the living room on edge. When she returned, she placed a cup with an unusual bluish tint to the foam in front of me. "Try it while it's hot," she urged, sitting directly across from me and watching intently. I lifted the cup, and that's when I noticed it, a strange, bitter almond smell underlying the coffee aroma. In my 45 years as a financial advisor, I'd attended numerous security seminars, including one on personal safety that had mentioned certain poisons having distinctive odors. Just as I was trying to figure out how to avoid drinking without raising suspicion, the doorbell rang again. Jessica looked startled and annoyed. "Are you expecting someone?" she asked sharply. "No," I replied truthfully, setting down the untouched coffee and moving toward the door. To my surprise, an older woman who looked like an older version of Jessica stood on my porch. "Mom," Jessica called out in clear shock. "What are you doing here?" "You said you were stopping by Brenda's to apologize, and I thought I'd join you," her mother explained, stepping inside. "I've been wanting to meet Andrew's mother for ages." Jessica's face cycled through several emotions rapidly: shock, panic, and then forced composure. "Linda, my mom," she introduced quickly. "Mom, this is Brenda." "Lovely to finally meet you," Linda said warmly. "Jessica speaks so highly of you." While Jessica was momentarily distracted by her mother's unexpected arrival, I made a split-second decision. I picked up both coffee cups and turned away, ostensibly, to get a napkin for Linda. In that brief moment, I switched the cups, placing the suspicious one in front of Linda's seat and taking the other for myself. "I haven't touched mine yet. Linda, would you like some coffee?" "Jessica brought enough for us to share," I offered, watching Jessica's face carefully. "Oh, how thoughtful. I'd love some," Linda replied, sitting down and immediately reaching for the cup I'd just placed in front of her. Jessica lunged forward slightly. "Mom, wait," but caught herself as both her mother and I looked at her questioningly. "I mean, let me get you your own cup. That one's specially made for Brenda." "Nonsense," I don't mind sharing, Linda said, already lifting the cup to her lips. Jessica watched, frozen, as her mother took a large sip. It tastes a bit odd. Very bitter. What kind of coffee is this, Jessica? Just try yours. Brenda, Jessica urged desperately, ignoring her mother's question. Her eyes were fixed on my cup with disturbing intensity. I think I'll save it for later, I said, standing up. Would anyone like some water instead? Linda suddenly put her hand to her forehead. I feel very strange, she murmured, her speech beginning to slur. The room is spinning. Jessica's face paled as she watched her mother's condition deteriorate rapidly. Linda's eyes were becoming unfocused, and she was swaying in her seat. What's happening to me? Linda gasped, attempting to stand, but immediately collapsing back onto the couch. Jessica, something's wrong. I moved toward the phone. I'm calling 911. No, Jessica shouted, leaping up and positioning herself between me and the phone. She's fine. She has low blood pressure. This happens all the time. Linda was now sliding sideways on the couch, her breathing becoming shallow. Can't feel my arms, she managed to say, before her eyes rolled back. I fainted left, then darted right around Jessica, reaching for my cell phone on the side table. Jessica grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. Don't you dare call anyone, she hissed, all pretense gone. Just sit down and drink your coffee. In that moment, I saw the true Jessica, cold, calculating, and dangerous. We struggled briefly before I managed to break free and grab my phone, quickly dialing 911. My friend is having a medical emergency, I told the dispatcher, keeping my eyes on Jessica, who was now frantically trying to revive her unconscious mother. I think she may have been poisoned. Please hurry. While waiting for the ambulance, Jessica attempted to grab the coffee cups and dump their contents. Don't touch those, I shouted. The paramedics will need to know what she ingested. Jessica looked at me with pure hatred. This is your fault, she spat. You switched the cups. You were supposed to drink that. I said nothing, but carefully secured the nearly full cup of tainted coffee, placing it high on a shelf where Jessica couldn't reach it. When the paramedics arrived, minutes later, Jessica switched tactics entirely, becoming the concerned daughter. She just collapsed, Jessica told them tearfully. She has heart problems. She drank coffee that I believe was tampered with, I interjected firmly. I have the cup here for testing. As the paramedics were loading Linda into the ambulance, I handed one of them the secured coffee cup. Please have this tested immediately, I said. I believe it contains poison. Jessica tried to follow the ambulance alone, but the police officer, who had arrived with the paramedics, insisted she come to the station for questioning first. As she was escorted to the police car, she turned to give me one last venomous look. This isn't over, she mouthed silently. I locked my doors, called my sister, and waited for the detective who was en route to my home. The nightmare was just beginning. St. Mary's Hospital Emergency Department was chaos when I arrived an hour later. Jessica was pacing the waiting area, flanked by a police officer who maintained a careful distance. When Andrew burst through the sliding doors, his face ashen with panic, I felt a surge of maternal instinct, despite everything that had happened. "What's going on?" he demanded, looking frantically between Jessica and me. "Mom, why are you here?" The police called and said something about Jessica's mother being poisoned. Before I could respond, Detective Wilson approached us. She was a stern-looking woman in her 50s, with shrewd eyes that missed nothing. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm Detective Wilson. We need to speak with you about the incident at your mother's home." What incident Jessica just told me her mom had a bad reaction to medication, Andrew said, confusion evident in his voice. That's not accurate, Detective Wilson stated flatly. The preliminary testing on the coffee your wife brought to your mother's home shows dangerously high levels of several sedatives, including benzodiazepines, and traces of what appears to be antifreeze. Mrs. Coleman is currently in critical condition. Andrew's face drained of color as he turned to Jessica. What is she talking about? Jessica burst into tears. They're lying. Brenda must have put something in the coffee to frame me. She's always hated me, Andrew. You know that. Detective Wilson remained unmoved. Mrs. Mitchell, can you tell your son what happened? Please. I recounted the morning's events as clearly as I could. Jessica's unexpected visit, the strange, smelling coffee, the cup switching, and Linda's rapid decline. With each detail, Andrew's expression shifted from disbelief to horror. The doctor treating Mrs. Coleman confirms the symptoms are consistent with multiple sedative poisoning, Detective Wilson added. The dose was potentially lethal. A young officer approached and whispered something to Detective Wilson. She nodded grimly before turning back to us. We've just received a warrant to search your home and vehicles, Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell. Officers are executing it now. This is ridiculous, Jessica protested, but her voice lacked conviction. I didn't do anything wrong. Just then, a doctor emerged from the treatment area. We've stabilized Mrs. Coleman, he announced. She's conscious, but confused. The toxicology screen confirmed multiple sedatives in her system at nearly 10 times the therapeutic dose, along with ethylene glycol, which is extremely concerning. If she hadn't received treatment so quickly, the outcome would likely have been fatal. Andrew sank into a chair, head in his hands. Jessica, tell me you didn't do this, he whispered. Jessica's demeanor changed instantly. It wasn't supposed to be my mother, she hissed, quiet enough that only Andrew and I could hear. It was meant for her. She jerked her head toward me. Andrew looked up, shock and revulsion written across his face. What did you just say? Detective Wilson's phone rang, and she stepped away briefly to answer it. When she returned, her expression was even more severe. Mrs. Mitchell, she addressed Jessica, we've found some concerning items at your residence. Several prescription medications not prescribed to you, printed research on untraceable poisons, and a recently taken out life insurance policy on your mother-in-law for $500,000. Jessica's face contorted with rage. You had no right to go through my things. We had a warrant, Detective Wilson replied coldly. And now we have probable cause for your arrest. She nodded to the officer beside her, who stepped forward with handcuffs. As Jessica was being read her rights, Andrew turned to me with tears streaming down his face. Mom, I had no idea. You have to believe me. Did you know about the life insurance policy? I asked quietly. His hesitation told me everything. She said it was just a precaution, he finally admitted, that all adult children should have policies on their parents for funeral expenses and things. $500,000 for funeral expenses, Detective Wilson interjected skeptically. Andrew crumbled, then his shoulders heaving with sobs. We're drowning in debt, he confessed. Jessica maxed out all our credit cards, took out loans I didn't know about. We're 3 months behind on the mortgage. She kept saying we just needed a little more money to get through, that we could fix everything if we had some capital. And my retirement savings was your capital. I asked, my heart breaking for him despite my anger. It started that way, he admitted, wiping his eyes. Just a loan to get us back on track. But then Jessica kept talking about how much easier everything would be if we had your money. At first, it was just about convincing you to invest in something, but then she started saying darker things. I never thought she'd actually try to hurt you. I swear to God, Mom, I never thought she'd go this far. Detective Wilson was writing everything down. Mr. Mitchell, we're going to need a formal statement from you. As they led Andrew away to another room, I sat alone in the waiting area, trying to process the unthinkable. My son's wife had tried to murder me for money, poisoning her own mother by mistake. And while Andrew claimed ignorance of her plan, he had clearly been complicit in trying to separate me from my savings. The hospital's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I waited, wondering how we had arrived at this devastating place, and if anything of my relationship with my son could ever be salvaged from the wreckage. Over the following weeks, the full extent of Jessica's deception came to light through police investigations and court proceedings. Detective Wilson visited me at home to share their findings, each revelation more disturbing than the last. We've confirmed that Jessica Coleman is actually Jessica Reeves, she explained, showing me a file with multiple driver's licenses featuring Jessica's face but different names. She has a history of financial fraud in 3 states, though she's managed to avoid serious charges until now. How did no one know this? I asked, stunned. She changed her identity legally after each incident, moving across state lines. Her parents knew, but protected her. It appears they've enabled this behavior since she was a teenager. The detective showed me printed emails found on Jessica's laptop, documenting months of pressure she'd been putting on Andrew to extract money from me. You need to man up and get the cash from your mother, one message read. She's old and doesn't need it. We do. Another email, dated just after I refused the investment, was even more chilling. Plan B starts tomorrow. Don't worry, it will look natural. Insurance pays either way. Andrew had been interviewed extensively. According to Detective Wilson, he maintained that while he knew Jessica wanted access to my money, he was unaware of any plan to harm me. Cell phone records showed he was genuinely at work when Jessica visited with the poisoned coffee. Your son is cooperating fully, Detective Wilson told me. He's provided access to all their financial records. The picture isn't pretty. They're over $400,000 in debt, mostly from Jessica's spending. Luxury purchases, secret credit cards, even gambling debts. Perhaps most disturbing was the discovery that this wasn't Jessica's first attempt to poison me. Testing of a jar of homemade jam she had given me months earlier, which I had found too bitter and discarded after one spoonful, revealed traces of the same substances found in the coffee. The preliminary hearing was held 3 weeks after the incident. Jessica, looking pale in her orange jumpsuit, pleaded not guilty despite the mountain of evidence against her. Andrew filed for divorce the same day, unable to look at his soon-to-be ex-wife as she was led away in handcuffs. The case attracted significant media attention, with local news running stories about the Black Widow barista and deadly brew. I found myself avoiding grocery stores and public places where neighbors would approach with morbid curiosity about the details. Linda Coleman recovered physically, but remained devastated by her daughter's actions. She and Jessica's father came to see me after she was released from the hospital. "We're so sorry," Linda said, tears streaming down her face. "We knew Jessica had problems, but we never imagined she could do something like this. We've enabled her for too long," Jessica's father admitted. "Paying off debts, covering up problems. We thought we were helping, but we just made it possible for her to do worse things." They had decided to cut ties with Jessica completely, refusing to help with her legal defense. The last strands of Jessica's support system had finally snapped. The district attorney offered Jessica a plea deal to avoid trial. In exchange for a full confession, she would receive 25 years instead of facing attempted murder charges that could result in life imprisonment. After initial resistance, Jessica ultimately accepted the deal. In her confession, she admitted to researching untraceable poisons, obtaining prescription medications through illegal online pharmacies, and meticulously planning what she called Brenda's accident. At the sentencing hearing, the judge was unsparing in his assessment. You preyed upon your husband's family for financial gain, and when manipulation failed, you resorted to one of the most cowardly forms of violence poisoning. That your own mother became your victim instead is a twist of fate that likely saved your mother-in-law's life. The court has no leniency to offer someone who would murder a family member for financial gain. As Jessica was led away to begin her sentence, Andrew sat beside me in the courtroom, a broken man. The road ahead of us would be long and uncertain. The year following Jessica's sentencing was one of slow, painful healing. Andrew moved into a small apartment after selling the house he had shared with Jessica. The proceeds barely covered their mortgage and a fraction of their debts. At 35, he was starting over financially, emotionally, and spiritually. For the first 3 months, I kept my distance, still processing my own trauma and betrayal. We communicated mainly through text messages and brief phone calls. I needed time to sort through my complicated feelings, the love for my son, tangled with the knowledge that he had at minimum considered schemes to take my money, and at worst, might have known more about Jessica's deadly plans than he admitted. I understand if you never trust me again, Andrew said during one of our early conversations. But I want you to know I'm getting help to understand how I let things go so far. Andrew had begun therapy to address how he had been manipulated by Jessica and why he had been vulnerable to her influence. His therapist recommended we eventually try joint sessions to rebuild our relationship with professional guidance. 6 months after the sentencing, I agreed to meet Andrew for coffee at a public cafe. The irony of the setting wasn't lost on either of us. I bring my own now, I said, lifting my travel mug with a weak attempt at humor. Andrew couldn't meet my eyes. Mom, I can't stop thinking about how close I came to losing you because of someone I brought into your life because I was too weak to stand up to her. Why didn't you just tell me how bad things were? I asked the question that had haunted me for months. Shame, he answered simply. Crushing, overwhelming shame. I was supposed to be successful, independent. You raised me to be responsible with money. But I let Jessica take control of our finances. And by the time I realized how bad it was, it seemed impossible to fix. Each lie required another lie to cover it up. Slowly, over many such meetings, we began rebuilding trust. I set clear boundaries. I would help Andrew emotionally, but not financially. He needed to solve his money problems himself through hard work and discipline. Around this time, I joined a support group for victims of financial elder abuse. The stories I heard from others helped me realize I wasn't alone. Many group members had experienced betrayal by family members, some with even more devastating outcomes than mine. Your instincts saved your life, the group facilitator told me. Never apologize for protecting yourself, even from people you love. Those words became my mantra as I navigated my new relationship with Andrew. I could love him without becoming vulnerable to harm. I could forgive without forgetting to stay vigilant. Andrew, to his credit, respected my boundaries, and worked tirelessly to rebuild his life honestly. He took a second job on weekends and lived frugally to address his debts. He never asked me for money, though I knew he struggled some months to make ends meet. 10 months after Jessica's imprisonment, Andrew made a public apology to me at a family gathering for my birthday. My sister Marie had insisted on hosting a small celebration, the first family event since the incident. I want everyone here to know how deeply sorry I am for what my choices put my mother through, Andrew said, his voice steady, despite the emotion behind his words. Mom, you've shown me what true strength looks like, not just in surviving what happened, but in your willingness to let me earn back your trust. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of that chance. Marie, who had been my rock throughout the ordeal, put her arm around me as I wiped away tears. You've always been too forgiving, she whispered, but he seems genuinely changed. The road to reconciliation wasn't always smooth. Holiday gatherings remained somewhat tense, with family members still processing their own feelings about what had happened. Some thought I was too hard on Andrew. Others believed I was too forgiving. I did what felt right for me, knowing that healing wouldn't follow anyone else's timeline. I made significant changes in how I protected myself. I updated my will, creating a trust with clear provisions and multiple trustees. I installed a comprehensive security system at my home and became much more careful about what food or drink I accepted from others, a sad but necessary precaution. As my experience became known in our community, other seniors began asking for advice on protecting themselves from financial exploitation. I started volunteering with a local senior center, sharing warning signs of potential elder abuse and emphasizing the importance of maintaining financial independence. 1 year after the coffee incident, Andrew and I sat on my back porch watching cardinals at the bird feeder. Our relationship was different now, more honest in some ways, more guarded in others. We would never return to the uncomplicated trust we once shared, but we were finding a new way forward. Do you think you'll ever fully trust me again? Andrew asked quietly. I trust that you love me, I answered truthfully. I trust that you're working to be better. But complete trust, that's something that has to be continuously earned in all relationships. What happened showed me that I need to balance love with self-protection. That's the most valuable lesson from this ordeal. Love shouldn't cloud judgment when it comes to protecting yourself, even with family. Perhaps, especially with family, maintaining healthy boundaries is essential. I can love my son deeply while still saying no when necessary. I can forgive past mistakes while staying alert to protect my future. If you're watching this and recognizing warning signs in your own family dynamics, please don't ignore them. Your financial independence is worth protecting. Your safety is non-negotiable. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong, even if it means disappointing someone you love. I'm grateful every day for the strange, bitter smell that saved my life. I'm thankful for the weird timing of Linda's arrival. Most of all, I'm thankful for the inner voice that told me something wasn't right when Andrew and Jessica first made their request. Has anyone in your family ever pressured you for money or made you feel guilty for protecting your finances? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story helped you recognize red flags in your own relationships, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more real-life stories about protecting yourself. Remember that loving someone doesn't mean making yourself vulnerable to harm. Thank you for listening to my story, and stay safe out there.